Great. Well, I think Ruth was briefly Lucy Yates from Consumer Focus for a couple of minutes. It's a bit of a slide issue there, but I am Lucy Yates from Consumer Focus, and I work on sustainability there. So I'm going to talk to you about communicating to consumers on green issues. This is from some research we did with consumers last year, looking at how companies communicate green messages to consumers and how you can do that in a way that actually increases consumer trust and confidence. So first, I've just got one brief chart here, not too many figures on it. Basically, the thing to take away from this slide really is issues around trust and confidence that I mentioned before. Firstly, in the research we did with consumers, we found that 65% of consumers didn't know how to tell if the green claims on a product were true or not. Now, that's not very helpful for companies or consumers. You're trying to put your green message across, but consumers can't tell if a company's claims are true. We've also got consumers saying it's difficult to know which products are actually better for the environment. Coupled with this is only 22% of consumers thinking that it's not possible for companies to make false claims about environmental performance. And that's a pretty shocking figure and shows quite low levels of trust. And I think we've really got an opportunity here to actually help consumers have more trust in the claims that companies make and help them actually be enthused about buying more green products and really buying into this whole green agenda. However, we did find in our research that consumers were keen to do more. They did want companies to offer them more information. They did want companies to offer them more products. And they were really keen for companies to be seen to be acting on these issues. So in our consumer research, we actually found, rather handily, 3 C's. These are things that companies need to do when they communicate to consumers or need to think about when they're trying to put their messages across. This is going to help fix this confidence and trust issues. So firstly, quite simply, we've got clarity. Now in the research that we looked at, there was a lot of information given to consumers that used very confusing language that consumers just didn't understand. And loads and loads of different information, loads of difficult metrics that actually people were very confused about. So just as a minimum, people want information that's clear and easy. So terms like carbon capture and storage, we might get very used to those terms ourselves, but in terms of general usage, we've got to think more carefully about what's actually going to be helpful for people. Second is credibility. So we looked at a whole range of different adverts that were being made across a range of different media, so TV, radio, newspapers, to just see what consumers actually took from those. So not to make a judgment on them about whether they were right or wrong, but just about what people actually understood by those claims. So one of the things we found was around incentives. So we found a particular advert. It was for a washing machine, an energy-efficient appliance, and there was a competition where consumers could win a flight to Florida to watch the space shuttle launch. And I'm sure that would have been fantastic fun for people, but in terms of messages that it gives people, it's actually a very mixed one and not really an appropriate incentive when you're trying to kind of push the green agenda. So I think just more awareness about how these things link up is really important. And secondly is this issue of third-party verification. So consumers actually were very keen about having third-party verification around claims because it gave them that extra level of trust. So endorsements from well-known organisations went down really well. However, there was a bit of a kind of catch to this because there were some evidence that we found where the third-party verifications used were not very well known by consumers. So, for example, we had a Starbucks advert that had an endorsement from, I think it was Conservation International, which is an international charity. However, in Britain, it's not actually very well known by consumers, and there was a little bit of scepticism that perhaps Starbucks had invented this logo, which they hadn't done. But it's really about making sure that you use the appropriate verification for the product, and you really learn about what your consumers think about your product and what kind of verification is suitable. And thirdly is comparability. So consumers want to make like-for-like comparisons between products, and it's really good to be able to enable them to do that. It helps them navigate their way through a range of very difficult decisions. I think one of the issues that comes up here is around kind of carbon labelling and also around CO2 per kilometre metric around cars. Consumers are very confused about that. So with the carbon footprinting, 70 grams of carbon, okay, it's a number, but is it a lot? You know, is it a little? There's no context there, and it doesn't really enable an easy comparison. With cars, consumers, weren't sure if, 100 grams of CO2 per kilometre, is that a lot, is it a little? And actually found things like, the car tax bands as an easier way to process that information. So it's really about making sure that the metrics, are understandable and comparable. Now, I actually thought of another 3 C's. I think this is really about, product-related information, and particularly with retailers. So it's about making the best use of the communication channels that are there to you. So firstly, coordinated information. It's great to give consumers some information about green products, but then if on all your other communication opportunities you're sending different messages out to consumers, that can be very confusing. What we really want is coordinated and consistent information. Things need to be repeated, again and again for long periods of time. And I think that's also where other organisations can work together about really helping bring those messages together that we're giving consumers, so we haven't got every organisation giving a different and potentially conflicting message. And the last one is choice editing. So this is really thinking about actually improving the standards of products and services in relation to sustainability, and actually getting rid of the worst performing ones on those terms. Because it can be that consumers don't actually want endless amounts of choice. They want to know that certain issues have been dealt with already, so they can make their purchases safe in the knowledge that the products they're buying are as sustainable or green or healthy as they can be. So this is really, don't solely put the burden on consumers to make the right environmental choice. They need some help to get there. Thank you.
Thanks.